Welcome back. Good to have you along. We're going to take a look at an author's voice, their style, and how that is shaped by several key factors. And then we're going to draw on an author to understand theirs as an example, as a case study. There are many components, but let's go through them. First of all, word choice or diction. This is a means where an author uses or chooses specific words to influence tone and meaning. A good example of that would be Hemingway's short, direct words versus Dickens, who would use elaborate, descriptive language. Secondly, sentence structure or syntax. Short, punchy, long, flowing, or varied, right? So an example here would be Cormac McCarthy often avoids punctuation, creating a sort of raw, poetic rhythm. Tone. The author's attitude towards the subject. Is it humorous, somber, sarcastic, nostalgic? So Jane Austen would, for example, use a witty, ironic tone. Edgar Allan Poe would be dark, melancholy tone. Perspective and view. So is it first person, third person? This shapes a reader's experience. As an example, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird is first person, child's perspective, whereas George Orwell's 1984 is third person. The author's use of figurative language or literary devices, so this would also shape it. So metaphors, similes, symbolism, imagery, alliteration. These will also shape the voice of the author. A good example here would be F. Scott Fitzgerald's metaphor-rich prose in The Great Gatsby. Narrative pacing. This is how the author will use speed in the dialogue, in the action sequences, in the slow down introspective to make the novel more engaging. Is it fast paced? Is it slow and introspective? For example, Dan Brown's thrillers move at a very quick pace, whereas Virginia Woolf's are more reflective. Themes and subject matter. So the recurring ideas and topics that an author focuses on. So as an example, Steinbeck often wrote about social injustice, social justice, and human resilience. Dialogue style. How characters speak. Is it formal, casual, witty, realistic, exaggerated? Mark Twain's use of dialect versus, let's say, as a good contrast, Oscar Wilde, sharp, witty conversations. Use of detail and description, so vivid scenes, rich detail versus minimalism. So examples here would be J.R.R. Tolkien, who uses extensive world building versus Raymond Carver's very sparse descriptions. The personal influence and experience. So authors often infuse into their work their own experiences, their own beliefs, and their own backgrounds. And I have talked about that aspect quite extensively in previous videos. A good example of this would be James Herriot, who used his veterinary career to shape warm, humorous storytelling. So let's take a look at James Herriot. James Herriot was a pen name. His real name was Alfred White. He was born October 3rd, 1916, and in Sunderland, in England. He spent most of his youth in Glasgow, in Scotland. He graduated from Glasgow's Veterinary College in 1939, and shortly after qualifying, White moved to the Yorkshire Dales for a job interview, which is where his books pick up. The Yorkshire Dales countryside, the eccentric farmers and the animals play a huge part in these novels. His career was interrupted by World War II, but he was encouraged by his wife, Joan, to chronicle all his experiences as a vet. However, when he tried to get them published, most publishers initially rejected the work, stating that who would be interested in the life of a country vet? This changed in 1970 when his first book, If Only They Could Talk, was published under the pen name James Herriot, which was inspired, by the way, after a famous Scottish football goalkeeper, and he just liked the name. The book was followed by a sequel, and these two books would eventually be combined into one, All Creatures Great and Small, which became a bestseller and launched a series of beloved sequels. Herriot's books stood out for their gentle humor, their vivid storytelling, and deep empathy for both animals and the people that lived, the farmers in this area. His success led to film adaptations and the BBC series of All Creatures Great and Small in 1978. And then this was later followed up in 2020 by a remake. Despite his global fame, White remained humble, continuing to practice veterinary medicine even after his books had made him very wealthy. He and Joan had 2 children, and they both followed their father to become vets. These books, they stood out, and they have a very distinctive voice. This is an interesting aspect. You can remove the name and have somebody read a passage of a book, and they can recognize, without the name, without the cover, that author. So this distinctive voice is something that we need to think more on. Take a look at the list. Work out what governs your style. What is your voice? Try to see what it is, examine what it is, and try to see whether you have developed that. It comes out with practice. So the more we write, the more we will hone and craft this particular style. I hope this video has been helpful and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Otherwise, bye for now.